Hello Zenith women and welcome to the channel. The loudest voice in the room is often the weakest, while silence carries a power most people fear to understand. In a world where extroversion is celebrated and noise is mistaken for competence, the silent Sigma female stands as an enigma. She's the quiet force in the corner, the one you underestimate until it's too late. Psychology studies suggest that introverted leaders often outperform their extroverted counterparts in managing proactive teams, a fact that makes her silent strength even more intriguing. But let's be honest, most people don't know what to do with her. Is she plotting world domination? Maybe. Is she just silently judging everyone? Probably not, but you'll never know, and that's the beauty of it. This article dives into the wild assumptions people make about silent Sigma females. The good, the bad, and the utterly absurd. Spoiler alert. You might just find yourself rethinking everything you thought you knew about the quiet ones. Number 1. She's a misfit who struggles to belong. People often assume that silent Sigma females are misfits, lost souls who struggle to belong anywhere. But the truth is far more complex and fascinating. She's not lost, she's choosing. In a society obsessed with fitting in, she's quietly rejecting the need to conform, carving out her own space instead of squeezing into pre-made molds. Her solitude isn't about exclusion or rejection, it's about authenticity. She doesn't want to fake a connection for the sake of appearances, nor does she feel the need to compromise her identity to be part of a crowd. This refusal to force herself into boxes makes her stand out, but not in the way people usually assume. They see her as different, but what they miss is the strength behind her decision to walk her own path. While others bend, shift, and twist themselves to gain acceptance, she holds firm. She knows who she is, and she's not afraid of walking alone if it means staying true to herself. Her quiet confidence can be unsettling to those who cling to groupthink. They may call her aloof or antisocial, but those labels say more about them than about her. She doesn't struggle to belong. She's not interested in belonging just anywhere. Her relationships are deliberate, her interactions meaningful. If she lets you in, it's because you've proven yourself worthy, not because she's desperate for company. This kind of independence terrifies people who thrive on validation. They don't understand how she can exist so comfortably on her own terms. But the truth is, she belongs exactly where she chooses to, and that's a kind of freedom most people will never experience. Number 2. She's weak because she doesn't dominate. People often mistake quietness for weakness, assuming that those who don't dominate a room lack strength. This couldn't be further from the truth for the silent Sigma female. Her refusal to engage in loud displays of power isn't a sign of submission. It's a testament to her mastery of restraint. She understands that true strength isn't about overshadowing others or demanding attention. It's about control, composure, and purpose. The silent Sigma female doesn't need to shout her worth because she already knows it. She's not here to compete in the usual ways, and that unnerves people who equate volume with value. While others scramble to outdo each other, she watches calmly, waiting for the right moment to act. Her strength lies in her ability to observe and strategize, making her moves with precision instead of desperation. It's easy to confuse her quietness with passivity, but in reality she's anything but passive. She chooses when to step in, and when she does, she often shifts the dynamic effortlessly. She knows that power isn't about who can yell the loudest or make the biggest scene. It's about who can stay steady in the chaos, who can command respect without demanding it. Her restraint is her weapon. It keeps her grounded, sharp, and unpredictable. She doesn't need to prove herself to anyone because she's already convinced of her own capabilities. For those who dismiss her as weak, the realization often comes too late. By the time they understand the depth of her strength, she's already outmaneuvered them in ways they didn't see coming. Number 3. She's lonely and craving rescue. Many people look at a silent Sigma female and assume she must be lonely, quietly yearning for someone to swoop in and rescue her from her solitude. But this assumption reveals more about their insecurities than hers. They can't fathom that someone might genuinely enjoy their own company, that solitude could be a choice rather than a punishment. For the silent Sigma female, independence isn't a coping mechanism or a mask for hidden longing. It's her natural state. She thrives in the stillness where most people flounder, while others fill their lives with noise and distraction to avoid confronting themselves. She embraces the silence, using it to grow, reflect, and recharge. The idea that she's waiting for rescue is laughable. She's not a damsel in distress. She's the one who rescues herself. The notion of needing someone else to complete her is foreign. She's already whole, and her solitude isn't a cry for help. It's a testament to her strength and self-reliance. But this independence often makes others uncomfortable. They project their fear of being alone onto her, misinterpreting her contentment as loneliness. They assume she's putting up a front, that beneath her quiet exterior she's desperate for connection. What they fail to understand is that she connects deeply, but selectively. She doesn't crave company for the sake of avoiding loneliness. She values meaningful relationships over quantity. In truth, her solitude is her sanctuary. She's not craving rescue because she doesn't see herself as lost. If anything, she's the one who rescues others, by showing them that being alone isn't something to fear, but something to embrace. Number 4. She's playing hard to get in relationships. When it comes to relationships, the silent Sigma female often gets misunderstood. Her independence is frequently misinterpreted as a calculated strategy, a deliberate act of playing hard to get to pique interest or seem more desirable. But this assumption couldn't be more off the mark. She's not engaging in a game, nor is she trying to manipulate anyone's attention. The truth is simpler and far less theatrical. She's just genuinely uninterested in seeking validation through romantic theatrics. For her, relationships aren't a stage for ego boosts or shallow pursuits. She doesn't need someone to chase her to feel valued, nor does she find any thrill in the push and pull dynamic that many mistake for romance. Her sense of self-worth comes from within, not from how much effort someone is willing to expend to win her over. This confuses people who are used to playing or encountering these games. They see her calm, self-assured demeanor and assume it's all part of a tactic. But the reality is far more disarming. She's indifferent to pretense and uninterested in superficial connections. If she's not engaging, it's not because she's testing anyone, it's because she simply doesn't see the point in investing time where it doesn't feel right. Her independence isn't a ploy, it's a way of life. She values her time, energy, and emotional space, and she's not willing to hand those over to just anyone. For her, a relationship is about genuine compatibility and mutual respect, not about who wins or who holds the upper hand. She's not playing hard to get, she's just living authentically. And that authenticity often leaves others questioning the rules of a game she's never even signed up to play. Number 5. She's pretending to be mysterious for attention. One of the most ironic assumptions people make about the silent Sigma female is that her quiet demeanor is a calculated act to appear mysterious and garner attention. To those who thrive in the spotlight, her silence seems almost theatrical, an intentional effort to draw people in. But in reality, she's doing the exact opposite, deliberately stepping away from the noise and attention she finds unnecessary. Her silence isn't a strategy, it's her natural state. She's not trying to mystify anyone or create intrigue for the sake of it. If anything, the idea of being the center of attention makes her roll her eyes. She doesn't crave an audience, nor does she tailor her behavior to meet anyone's expectations. Her actions are driven by authenticity, not performance. The truth is, her quietness is often misunderstood because it doesn't conform to societal norms where being loud and visible is equated with success or significance. People who are used to seeking validation through external recognition can't wrap their heads around someone who not only avoids the spotlight, but actively shuns it. Her avoidance of unnecessary attention doesn't stem from insecurity. It's a preference. She doesn't need to fill the room with her voice or command all eyes on her to feel valued. She's content being in the background, observing and choosing her moments to engage intentionally. The mystery people attach to her is often a projection of their curiosity, not something she cultivates. Ironically, the very people who accuse her of pretending to be mysterious are the ones giving her the attention she never sought in the first place. For the silent Sigma female, attention is neither a goal nor a reward. It's simply an unwelcome byproduct of being unapologetically herself. Number 6. She's arrogant and thinks she's better than everyone else. The silent Sigma female's self-assured silence often makes people uneasy, leading to the assumption that she's arrogant or thinks she's better than everyone else. Her calm detachment from group dynamics and her lack of need to prove herself can come across as aloofness or even disdain. But this interpretation is less about her and more about how people perceive confidence that isn't loud. She doesn't operate in the realm of trivial competition because it doesn't interest her. She's not the type to vie for attention, validation, or dominance in social settings. While others might feel the need to assert themselves to be seen or heard, she sees no point in engaging in unnecessary contests. To her, true worth isn't measured by how many people notice you or how loudly you can assert your presence. It's measured by self-awareness and authenticity. This quiet confidence can make others feel inferior, not because she exudes superiority, but because her lack of need for validation can highlight their dependence on it. People might project their insecurities onto her, mistaking her disinterest in superficial dynamics as judgment. In reality, she's simply focused on what matters to her, whether it's personal growth, meaningful relationships, or her own unique path. She doesn't think she's better than anyone else. She just doesn't see the value in comparing herself to others. Her goals, priorities, and sense of self aren't tied to external benchmarks or opinions. If someone feels dismissed or overlooked in her presence, it's usually because she's not playing the same game they are. Her silence isn't arrogance. It's a choice to rise above the noise, focusing her energy on what truly matters. It's not about being better. It's about being true to herself, unapologetically. Number 7. She's aloof because she's insecure. It's easy for people to mistake the silent Sigma female's calm, composed demeanor for insecurity. To them, her quietness must mean she's unsure of herself, afraid to engage, or too timid to take up space. But this assumption couldn't be more off base. Her silence isn't born from self-doubt. It's a reflection of her deep sense of security in who she is and her ability to find contentment within herself. While others draw confidence from external validation, be it from crowds, conversations, or attention, she doesn't need those things to feel complete. She thrives in solitude, a space where many feel exposed or vulnerable. Her ability to find peace in her own company speaks volumes about her self-assurance. She's not hiding, she's comfortable. This misinterpretation often says more about others than it does about her. People who struggle with being alone project their discomfort onto her, assuming her silence must be rooted in some kind of inadequacy. But while they may feel the need to fill silence with noise or prove their worth through constant interaction, she remains grounded, content to observe, reflect, and simply be. Her aloofness isn't a mask for insecurity, it's a boundary. She doesn't waste energy on shallow connections or unnecessary interactions. This doesn't mean she's cold or detached. It just means she values her peace and prefers to engage meaningfully on her terms. The irony is that her composed silence often reflects more confidence than loud voices ever could. She doesn't need to announce her presence or demand attention to feel worthy. While others try to find themselves in the noise, she stands apart, already knowing exactly who she is. Number 8. She's hiding a dangerous temper. The silent Sigma female often sparks assumptions that her calm exterior hides a dangerous temper, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. People misinterpret her quiet demeanor as suppression, thinking her silence is a fragile dam holding back waves of anger or frustration. In truth, her silence isn't about repression, it's about mastery. She's not bottling up emotions, she's regulating them with intention and control. Her ability to remain calm in situations where others might lose their composure is a skill, not a facade. She doesn't avoid conflict because she's afraid or seething underneath. She avoids it because she sees no value in wasting energy on unnecessary outbursts. Emotional intelligence is her strength, and she's learned to channel her feelings in ways that don't involve theatrics or destructive behavior. This level of self-control often makes people uneasy. They assume that still waters must run dangerously deep, projecting their fear of losing control onto her. But what they fail to understand is that she's not suppressing her emotions. She's simply choosing how and when to express them. For her, restraint isn't weakness, it's power. That doesn't mean she doesn't feel anger or frustration. She does, like everyone else. The difference is that she processes those emotions internally, working through them in private rather than making a public spectacle. When she does choose to express herself, her words and actions are deliberate and impactful, not impulsive or reckless. The assumption that her quietness hides volatility couldn't be further from the truth. Her composure is a result of self-awareness, discipline, and emotional maturity. Instead of being a danger, her calmness is her greatest weapon, allowing her to navigate life's challenges with poise and precision, leaving others wondering how she does it. Number 9. She's easily intimidated by dominant personalities. It's a common misconception that the silent Sigma female is easily intimidated by dominant personalities, that her quiet demeanor somehow signals submission to those who dominate a room with their forceful presence. But in reality, her silence is far from weakness. It's a strategic choice that often shifts the power dynamics in ways people don't even realize. When she remains silent in the face of loud, dominant personalities, it isn't because she's intimidated or overpowered. She simply understands that words and noise are often distractions. While others are busy asserting themselves, trying to outshine each other with volume and bravado, she quietly observes, collects information, and positions herself with precision. In her silence, she wields a kind of quiet authority that others may not notice until it's too late. Her calm, composed presence can subtly unsettle those who thrive on dominating conversations and situations. They mistake her lack of response for a lack of confidence, not realizing that her restraint is a calculated move. She doesn't need to shout to be heard. In fact, when she does speak, her words tend to carry more weight than most because she's not filling the space with empty noise. What others see as submission is often her way of maintaining control. She knows that true influence doesn't always come from being the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it's the quiet observer who holds the most power. Her silence allows her to understand the dynamics at play and find the right moment to act, often shifting the balance of power in her favor when others least expect it. Rather than being intimidated, she's quietly in control. Her silence doesn't make her submissive, it makes her a master of her environment. Number 10. She's antisocial and dislikes people. The assumption that the silent Sigma female is antisocial or dislikes people is a glaring misinterpretation of her behavior. It's easy to look at her quiet demeanor and assume that she's rejecting the world around her, but the truth is far from that. She doesn't dislike company. She simply values quality over quantity when it comes to social interactions. For her, small talk and surface-level chatter feel draining rather than fulfilling. She doesn't see the point in engaging in conversations that don't contribute to meaningful connection. While others may be content with shallow exchanges or trying to fit in through constant interaction, she's much more selective about who she spends her time with. It's not that she doesn't like people. She just doesn't see the value in spreading herself thin on relationships that don't add depth or purpose to her life. This doesn't mean she's uninterested in connection. Far from it, she's simply interested in the kind of relationships that go beyond the surface. The people she allows into her inner circle are those with whom she can engage on a deeper level, where authenticity, respect, and understanding take precedence over superficial pleasantries. Her disinterest in trivial interactions often gets misread as antisocial behavior, but in reality she's just looking for real, substantial connections, not social filler. She doesn't need to be surrounded by a crowd to feel content. The quality of the connection matters far more than the quantity. So, while others may be puzzled by her preference for solitude, she's not rejecting people, she's simply choosing to engage with them on her terms when it truly counts. The silent Sigma female is a paradox wrapped in quiet confidence, often misunderstood but rarely deterred by the misjudgments of others. While assumptions swarm around her, labeling her as aloof, insecure, or playing games, the truth is far more compelling. She exists on her own terms, refusing to conform to society's loud, fast-paced expectations. Her silence isn't a weakness or a strategy, it's a declaration of self-assurance, a deliberate choice to live authentically in a world obsessed with appearances. What makes her truly extraordinary is her ability to thrive in the spaces others fear: solitude, introspection, and quiet self-reliance. She doesn't seek validation, doesn't play by the unspoken rules of competition, and certainly doesn't need the spotlight to know her worth. Her power lies in her subtlety, her ability to observe and influence without drawing unnecessary attention. If you've made it this far, it means you truly appreciate the depth and mystery of the silent Sigma female. And that's exactly why you belong here. This is just the beginning of a journey filled with thought-provoking insights, powerful truths, and stories that challenge conventional thinking. Don't miss out on what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button and become part of a community that celebrates authenticity, individuality, and the strength in quiet confidence. Let's keep diving into the layers of what makes people extraordinary, one conversation at a time. Your voice matters here, even in the silence.